Donald Trump's Narcissism Playbook. It is not a stretch to think that Donald Trump might just possibly be a malignant narcissist. Now, of course, I cannot diagnose narcissism from my armchair. However, if it walks like a narc and quacks like a narc, I'm just saying. We're going to take a look at a number of narcissistic tactics. We're going to look at what it looks like to you and me, what it actually is underneath, what's going on underneath, what effect that has on us. And then we're going to take a look at the different ways that Trump uses these narcissistic tactics on the American people and on the global stage. The reason it's important is, well, let me give you an example. Let's take a look. This was in the White House just about a week ago when President Zelensky was berated for what he was wearing. Let's look.
Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're the
They're
highest
laughing.
level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if you do own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not
Really?
respecting.
I don't
the
have
dignity of
such.
this office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so here's why this is important. After that berating, a lot of people on the left were starting to have this argument about whether or not he should have to wear a suit to visit with President Trump. And people on the right were saying, people on the left were saying, well, but Elon Musk never wears a suit. How come Elon Musk doesn't have to wear a suit, but President Zelensky has to wear a suit? Y'all, it was never about the suit. And so while we're over here arguing about whether or not Elon's wearing a suit is just as disrespectful, we are completely missing the point. It was about the cruelty. It was about the humiliation. It was about letting Zelensky know that he was in a hostile environment. That's what this was about. We need to stop fighting about whether or not he should have worn a suit and start getting to the point of how incredibly disrespectful it was for our White House press corps to demean him in that way, and then to have the other people who were present say and do nothing about it. That's the real issue. That's why this is important. Because as long as we're fighting over these other little things, we are missing the point. The cruelty is the point, and the berating and the demeaning is the point. The narcissism is the point. So let's take a look at some of these tactics. The first one I want to talk about is love bombing. And this is the very first tactic a narcissist will use, and it is absolutely critical because without this piece, none of the others will work. The love bombing is a stage where the person really seems to get you, like they really understand you, like they see you in a way no one else has ever seen you before. And I've even heard people talk about it in terms of like, they're my soulmate, they're my savior. Here's what's really going on. This is a very carefully crafted manipulation. A narcissist does not see you. They don't care about you. But what they have done is that they have spent years learning how to learn about you so that then they can use that information to manipulate you. So if you've ever been on a date with a narcissist, they will just pepper you with questions, and it seems like they're so interested in you and wanting to get to know you, and you won't realize until much, much, much later that they didn't really share all that much about themselves. That is a red flag. That is a key, a clue that they are baiting you. They're trying to extract information so that they can then use that information to manipulate you down the line. So it's all an act. It's not real. They draw you in like a vampire. And here's the part where we learn, I am a nerd.
I'm a killer.
I don't believe that.
It's because you believe a lie. It's a camouflage. I'm the world's most dangerous predator. Everything about me invites you in. My voice, my face, even my smell. As if I would need any of that.
Okay. Yeah, that's my nerd moment. But I think it's so critical. I mean, it summarized it perfectly. Everything about a narcissist is designed to draw you in and to encourage you to let your guard down. Okay. So what that means is you let your guard down and you do let them know far more about you than you learn about them. Okay, that puts you in a vulnerable position. That's its effect on you, is it makes you vulnerable. Now let's take a look at the ways that President Trump draws you in.
Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs. Your Twitter account.
Only Rosie O'Donnell. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
Okay, now before we get to the next part of this, which is actually the point of this segment, which is to make a case that Donald Trump says that he loves you when really he's very mean to you. But what they're missing is that all of these things that Donald Trump has said that are hateful, that are disgusting, that are vile, those are part of the love bombing, because the people he's love bombing at this stage of his presidency are the people who also have hate and who have like these disgusting ideas and thoughts about other people. And so for him to say those things in public gives them permission to be their worst selves. That is in itself a form of love bombing. But then he goes on to make it much more explicit.
I love China. I love Mexico. I tell everybody. So I love you too. That's a guy, but I do love him, actually. I won with men, but that's not important to me. I won with women. That's very important. Very important. That. I'm going to take such good care of women's health care issues, you won't even believe it. They love me. I love them. And I love the Mexican people, and I've said it 100 times. Nobody ever says it. Nobody ever reports it. That's a problem. I think women are the greatest. No, I think they're superior to men. I love the Muslims. I think they're great people.
I'll win the Latino vote. I will win it.
I have such respect for women. I cherish women. I say, what's sexist about it? I respect women more than I respect men. Are the men insulted by that, by the way? No.
Okay, that is enough of that. So this was early on in his presidency, in his first run. I think a lot of these clips are from his very first run, and he clearly was love bombing, right? He was being charming, he was being personable, and even when he was being disgusting, he was targeting his specific audience. So that's love bombing. Let's take a look now at playing the victim. Narcissists love to play the victim. And a narcissist who is a victim is deeply hurt. And the one that's deeply hurting them typically is you. So if you would just change your attitude or your perspective or your behavior, then they wouldn't be hurt anymore. Then they wouldn't have to play the victim. Everything would be just fine. And it makes you want to do better for them. That's why this tactic is so ugly, is because the more they place on you the responsibility for being the one that hurts them, the more you want to do better, because now you think that they love you, that they're everything to you, you're everything to them, and if you're hurting them, of course you're going to want to do everything you can to change that for them. And so you're drawn in a whole new way, and now you've yourself invested in making sure that the relationship works. The thing is that they are truly and utterly incapable of taking responsibility for the things that are happening to them. And so a lot of times their victimhood is actually very self-inflicted, but they believe that the world owes them for this terrible things that the world has done for them. Here's how it has an effect on you. When you are accused of being the perpetrator and they the victim, you start to walk on eggshells because you just never know what's going to set them off. And you start to believe that maybe you really are as horrible of a person as they think you are, as they're telling you are, because they keep telling you you're hurting them, and you don't want to be that kind of a person. So you start to really get down on yourself. And when you start berating yourself instead of just them berating you, that's when the narcissism really takes hold. So let's take a look at the different ways in which President Trump has played the victim.
Now at the center of multiple investigations, Mr. Trump said a weaponized justice system is the greatest threat to the U.S.
We must conduct a top-to-bottom overhaul to clean out the festering rot and corruption of Washington, D.C. And I'm a victim, I will tell you.
A victim.
I'm a victim.
I'm a victim.
That's right, folks. I'm the biggest victim of all. Every time I do something illegal, they come after me. I've done 30 illegal things. They've come after me at least 20 times. It's so unfair, so unfair.
Okay, so yeah, Trump is always playing the victim. And the thing is that he's convinced his followers that he's the victim. He's used this term weaponization of the government so often that his followers really and truly believe that he's innocent of absolutely everything that he's been accused of. The next tactic that a narcissist will use is gaslighting. And this is the one that you hear a lot in a lot of the news has been talking about gaslighting. But here's what it looks like. Here's what gaslighting looks like. It looks like that they know more things than you do, and that they have your best interest at heart. So if they tell you something that doesn't really match the thing that you thought you saw or that you thought you heard, you trust them, you trust their judgment, and so you start to think that, I don't know, maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe what I saw isn't what I saw. And ultimately you become thankful that you have someone who's looking out for you, who's got your best interest in mind, and who's going to make sure that you're okay. Here's what it is. It's lies, obviously. But you can't just call all lies gaslighting, because it's much more insidious than that. So after the lie, there's an effort to make you believe that you're the crazy one because you think you saw something that clearly you didn't see. You think you heard something that clearly you didn't hear. You must be crazy. You must be going crazy. So its effect on you, it's the worst part of gaslighting, is it makes you doubt your own eyes. It makes you doubt your own ears, your own perception. It makes you start to think that you're losing your mind and that you can't be trusted to function in the world without their help. And you start to believe the narcissist's version of events. You advocate. You abdicate. You abdicate yourself for them. Now, here's the part that no one talks about. Gaslighting, if you are a victim of gaslighting for weeks, months, years, decades, gaslighting actually changes the chemistry of your brain. It puts you in this like constant state of fight or flight. And if you are in fight or flight, you are not thinking critically, right? Like you're not able to think clearly and to do some really significant problem solving. When a narcissist has you in a constant state of fight or flight, like this country has been in a constant state of chaos and fight or flight, you can't think critically and you can't solve problems. So that's part of the point of the chaos of Trump's administration, is to keep the chaos, keep you off your game so that you can't think critically, you can't solve problems. Here's what that looks like.
I'm not sure, what there is to say about January 6th at this point. We all saw what happened. Trump lost. He said he didn't. A bunch of cowardly Republicans backed him up. They all whipped up a mob which stormed the Capitol and beat police with flagpoles, trying to overturn our democracy. This launched the largest criminal investigation in our nation's history. Nearly 1,600 of the rioters faced judicial inquiry, 1,000 of which have already been to trial or pleaded guilty. Out of all of them, 2 have been acquitted. The results are in. It was bad, or as Trump would call it,
That was a day of love.
Yes. Yes, on January 6th, love was in the air. Also, bear spray.
Okay, so this is a classic example of gaslighting. We all saw with our own eyes in real time what happened on January 6th. There was a riot at the Capitol. People were being beaten. People were being, like, squished between the doors. They were smearing feces on the walls. They were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And now Donald Trump says, it was a day of love. Nobody died. It's a flat-out lie. But what Trump has learned is that if he says a lie often enough, his followers will start to believe it. Right? The people that he's been love bombing and gaslighting will start to believe the lie. And once you start falling for that gaslighting, it's very hard to ever come back from that. Your brain chemistry changes and you're kind of like you're hooked in a not a good way. Let's take a look at a few other things that President Trump has said that are just straight up lies and straight up gaslighting.
You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. It's
Democrats love America and we love Americans.
true. The most corrupt, horrible people. These are horrible people. Oops, we should get along with everybody. They're horrible people. He's the worst.
Yeah, let's take a look at who's the horrible people. Who's corrupt? Is it Ms. Harris? Vice President Harris?
President in the history of the USA. Obama.
Okay, he said President Biden is the worst president in the history of the USA. Quite literally, Trump is one of the worst presidents ever. And you can ask political pundits. I don't have it up here. You can Google it. So you can't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure allegedly Trump was one of the worst presidents. Biden was actually one of the best presidents that we've ever had in terms of helping an economy after a pandemic recover faster than any other G7 country in the world. Just saying.
Obama was a great divider. He was a great, great divider.
Okay. Obama was the great divider. You know why Obama was the great divider? Because he had the audacity to be black. It was his blackness that divided the country, but not because he was dividing it, but because white supremacists couldn't take it.
Kamala Harris, a very low IQ individual.
Okay, Kamala Harris was one of the most qualified candidates for president that we have ever had.
So this guy, David Muir, pretty boy, he goes, that's stuff. I don't think he's that good looking anymore.
I mean, David Muir is not attractive. I mean, I'm just saying.
Time does that.
To you?
Time does that. She would get us into a third world war. Look at it.
Okay, who is going to get us into the third world war? Would it have been Kamala Harris, who was working tirelessly for peace? Or is it the guy who wants to annex Greenland, conquer Canada, conquer Mexico, conquer Panama Canal, steal Gaza, and throw Ukraine under the bus? Which one is trying to throw us into World War III?
That general. He's a real general, not like Milley. Not like
General Milley, who was one of the most decorated generals in American history.
Milley. Not like Kelly, low. He's a low IQ guy. They're incompetent people. Kamala is a radical left Marxist, rated even worse than crazy Bernie Sanders.
Okay. They love to say that Kamala Harris was a far left Marxist, like, crazy. Kamala Harris was one of the most centrist candidates we have ever had. In fact, she leaned so far over toward the right that she lost all of the progressives. We're like, y'all, come on back. The water's warm over here on the progressive side, and she wasn't having it. She's like, nah, I'm going to ride right down the middle.
Sanders or Pocahontas herself. She doesn't have the intellect, the stamina, or that special quality that real leaders, people like Brett Favre, have. They're grossly incompetent people, and they've destroyed our country. Donald Trump wants to put us in jail. Donald Trump is going to go after some of the scum that you see back there.
Okay. He's claiming that the people on the left were saying Donald Trump's going to come after the media. And he here is saying they're claiming I'm going to come after the media. Surely that's not true. What is he literally doing right now? He's coming after the media with his lawsuits. And they are falling down in line, one after the next. They're settling lawsuits that they could not possibly have actually lost, but they don't want to cause any trouble. So yes, he absolutely went after the people in the back there.
You see back there, that's so dishonest. And you can't be president if you hate the American people. And there's a lot of hatred.
No. We love the American people. We hate the hatred.
Another game.
There is a lot of hatred, Mika. A lot of hatred coming from him. That's Donald Trump. What does John Heilman say? It's either projection or confession.
The next tactic that we will use is word salad. Here's what word salad seems like. A word salad is just like words are being spoken, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And oftentimes it just goes like bing, 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 bing. And you're like, where are we? What happened? The thing is that there's often a small thread, a tiny thread that sort of weaves through all of these. Remember the weave? So one part of your brain is trying really hard to follow this train of thought that's going all over the place. But while you're doing that, the rest of your brain is completely just distracted. It's just, you can't follow. And so the rest of your brain is trying to make sense of this craziness that you're experiencing. So here's what it really is. A narcissist says words that make no sense, but it's intended to throw you off your balance. And keeping you off your balance keeps you in a constant state of chaos. And that is always the point. So the effect on you, a really advanced word salad can make you feel like you just got punched in the gut. But you probably won't even be able to remember after the conversation what was said, because none of it made any sense. So you'll be leaving with this feeling that it was horrible, but not really have any memory of any of the details of what actually happened. Let's take a look at a couple of the ways that we have seen President Trump use word salad to say a whole lot without saying anything at all.
It is perhaps the clearest example of watch what they do, not what they say. Here's Donald Trump being asked a yes or no question yesterday about whether he would ban the drug used to provide medication abortions.
You could do things that would supplement, absolutely. And those things are pretty open and humane. But you have to be able to have a vote. And all I want to do is give everybody a vote. And the votes are taking place right now as we speak.
What?
Okay, so if you have no idea what he meant by that, you're not alone.
Let's take a listen to another ramble of word salad. Now he's going to be asked about childcare costs. Listen and see if you can come away with what he actually had to say about childcare costs.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was somebody. We had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you.
Oh my God. What the hell did he just say? I heard several times he came close to maybe talking about the child care problem. And then he finally did land. He actually did say something concrete about the child care cost problem in America. And what he said was, it's not that expensive. Okay. Now let's take a look at projection as a narcissistic tactic. Okay, here's what it seems like. When a narcissist is projecting, they are accusing you of doing something that they themselves are doing. It's really quite that simple. But here's what it really is that you pour your energy into trying to convince them that you didn't actually do that thing that they're accusing you of doing, that it's not true, but it was never about you. It was always about them and what they were doing. And you've heard this phrase, every accusation is a confession. That's exactly what this is. So when a narcissist is accusing you of something, instead of spinning wheels trying to get back to like, I didn't do that, it wasn't me, that's not exactly that. And Democrats do this. We do. President Trump says something the Democrats didn't. Oh no, that's not. We didn't. That's not what this is about. It never was about that. He does the things he is accusing other people of doing. So how that affects you, you actually really start to believe that the things that they're accusing you of doing, maybe you did actually do. And then you stop blaming them for the things that really are on them. Because clearly, if you're guilty of X, Y, and Z, you can't blame them for A, B, and C, because everybody's in the wrong here. It's just a tactic that is used not only to turn attention away from themselves, but if you know the tactic, you can make sure that you look back on themselves. If they're accusing someone of something, you can damn well be sure that that's something that they are either doing now or are planning to do in the near future. Let's take a look at what that looks like.
One of the central ironies of Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents is that Trump himself was elected president after attacking Hillary Clinton over her handling of classified documents. And he accused Clinton of trying to cover it up by destroying evidence in an unorthodox way.
Hillary Clinton and her top aides knowingly destroyed evidence and covered up their actions. Her staff deleted all the emails and wiped it clean. She bleached her emails. Nobody even heard about it before. She
not a thing.
bleached, which somebody
Not a
said they
thing.
never even heard of. Used chemical so that nobody will ever be able to see them. Who does this?
Nobody. 'Cause it's
Now, to
not
be
a thing.
clear, Hillary Clinton did not bleach her private email server, whatever that means. Trump appears to have confused the name of a software tool called BleachBit with the household cleaning product he would later promote as a cure for COVID. And the FBI never found any reason to believe Hillary Clinton tried to destroy evidence. But the point here is that the thing Trump falsely accused Hillary Clinton of doing is exactly what Jack Smith has just accused Donald Trump of doing: conspiring to wipe a private server in order to destroy evidence. It is the kind of projection that we have seen time and again from Donald Trump. He accused Hillary Clinton of corrupt business practices and misusing her charities. He accused Joe Biden of blackmailing the Ukrainian government and trying to steal an election. All things that Trump himself has been charged with or sued over or impeached for. Many of the things he accuses someone else of doing is something Trump himself has either done or might do. Or, as my colleague Mehdi Hassan puts it, every accusation is a confession.
So this is probably one of the most useful tactics to start to recognize. Because Trump lays it all out there, all the things he's about to do. He lays it all out there. He accuses other people of doing all of these things. And if we're paying attention, everything he says that he's accusing someone of doing is something that he himself has done. For example, when he stands up and says that the election is rigged, and then lays out all the different ways that he believes the election is rigged, those are all things either he is working towards to rig the election or was planning to work towards to rig the election. And we just spend so much of our time trying to convince the world that we didn't do it that everybody's missing the point. That this is what he's planning to do. It's all right there handed to us on a silver platter if we were to pay attention. Okay. Another tactic used is triangulation. And this, what it seems like is that oftentimes a third party is drawn into a conflict. And it looks like there's a third party that's there to help solve a problem that might be difficult or impossible to solve with just the other two people. And it looks like there's a great deal of goodwill involved in this attempt to help solve a problem. Here's what it really is. A third party is drawn in to get two parties on one side against a third party. So often, the party that's drawn in a third person tells lies about that other person so that you think that everyone thinks that that's the person is the problem. That person's the problem. When in fact, no. The person over here and the person they've triangulated, those are the problems. Sometimes you'll hear it termed flying monkeys, and oftentimes that is what happens after a relationship is broken down. The narcissist will try to get all of the other people that were friends of both of you onto their side. And then they start telling lies and they start making you look like the problem. You're the crazy person. And then soon you feel completely isolated. So that's the effect that it has, is that it makes you feel completely and utterly alone. Let's take a look at how Trump recently used triangulation to utterly diminish and isolate the person on the outside.
Do you, and now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say,
yes, please.
Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal? That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America. And for the good of the
He just said, I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States. In a meeting with our ally. Up until this meeting, we were allies with Ukraine. So he cannot claim that he's not, well, he can because he's switching up the roles here. He's turning the world on its head because this was the meeting in which Trump announced to the world, no, we in fact are not allied with Ukraine or Europe anymore. No, we're allies with Russia now. This was a bomb drop. But listen to how he continues to spin this narrative that he's the person in the middle, not aligned with either side, but at the same time aligned with both sides, because that's the only way that you can negotiate a deal.
World. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of thing. He's got tremendous hatred.
Like, no fucking
and
shit,
I understand
man.
that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment.
Yes,
I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so.
Okay, so this was one of the most disgusting displays of triangulation. We're in a meeting where President Trump is supposed to be a neutral third party negotiating on both sides, which he actually could never have been, because if he had actually been allied with Ukraine, it would have been much tougher to be neutral. But it was a disgusting display of throwing the enemy under the bus. And in that meeting, he humiliated, belittled, and completely isolated President Zelensky. It was horrifying, and the world saw. The world saw. And I will say, I'm incredibly grateful for Europe, because in that moment, Europe united like they never had before. Man, they came to Zelensky's defense. They were like, within hours, all of those countries, I don't know about all of them, but a bunch of those countries in Europe came out and explicitly vocally said on their socials, we've got your back. We hear America doesn't got your back anymore. We've got your back. So I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for them. Now, as a relationship starts to really, really turn sour, a narcissist will use a smear campaign against his perceived enemies. And here's the thing about narcissists is that you are only one of two people, maybe one of three people. You are either for him or you are against him. Or the third would be an irrelevant third party, like the bystander who's a witness to the battle between the people that are for him and the people that are against him. President Trump is an extremely adept. He's extremely adept at smearing his enemies. So let's take a listen to that.
Who would believe this? 80 days from now, we are going to defeat a communist known as Kamala Harris. She's a communist. Most radical left person ever to run for office. This is not what this country needs. We've had enough of them. This is communist, this is Marxist, this is fascist. But you know what? It's dangerous because she's saying that she's going to give away things that she'll never be able to get approved. Look, people say, be nice. Have you heard her laugh? That is the laugh of a crazy person. That is the laugh of a crazy.
Okay. That is an explicitly racist thing to say. You may have heard of the term a barrel of laughs. That comes from the pre-Civil War times. When black people were enslaved in this country, they were not allowed to laugh. because the joy of the black people was offensive to the white slave owners. Their laughter, their joy was offensive. And so black people, when they would find themselves wanting to laugh, would stick their head in a barrel so that they wouldn't be heard. That's where a barrel of laughs comes from. For Trump to criticize Kamala Harris's laugh is explicitly racist, because he is saying that the laughter of a black woman is offensive to him.
It's the laugh of a lunatic. Have you heard it? You know, they prohibited her. They prohibited her for laughing. I've been waiting for her to laugh, because as soon as she laughs, the election's over.
One of the worst parts about the smear campaign is that if you are a victim of that smear campaign, it leaves you utterly defeated, belittled, humiliated, and isolated. Now let's look at hoovering. Now this is not hovering. This is like President Trump did when he was hovering behind Hillary Clinton at their debate. No, this is hoovering, and it's named after the Hoover vacuum cleaner. And what it essentially is that if the two of you have separated, or you're having a spat, or you're having a fight, a narcissist cannot exist without another party to reflect back to them what that other person sees about them. A narcissist has no sense of self apart from what gets bounced back off of them, the feedback that they get off of other people. That is their only sense of self. That is why this particular malignant narcissist has to have rallies, because he has no sense of self if he's not having that feedback, that admiration reflected back to him. That's why he loves the spotlight so very much. So when that relationship is split or rent, hoovering is, it looks like they've finally come to their senses. They finally understand all of the harm that they've caused, and they want you back. They've finally turned over a new leaf. They want you back in their life. What it actually is they cannot function without that feedback. And they will do anything to hoover you back in, to draw you back in. And the thing is that you will never escape the hooks of a narcissist until you are really and truly and utterly free of that narcissist. Until you go no contact. I'm not going to go into great depth about that, but no contact basically means you completely cut them off. But until you go no contact, you will always be hooked by that narcissist. You'll never be free of them. So one of the ways that I've seen President Trump get his hooks in is after Roe v. Wade was overturned, women were pissed. Women wanted nothing to do with him. White women wanted nothing to do with him. And so what President Trump did, or at the time the candidate Trump, yes, that's what he was, a candidate at that point. Candidate Trump spent a lot of time talking about how much he loves women, trying to hoover those women who were mad at him because of Roe v. Wade being overturned, trying to hoover them back in. Let's see how he did that.
My people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that.
Recounting how his staff told him that kind of statement is inappropriate.
I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
This won't likely help Trump with...
Okay. He's going to protect women whether they like it or not. And so for those women who are, and there are some women out there who are seeking a savior, right? And Trump has already positioned himself as their savior. For those women who are seeking a savior, they are not offended when Trump says he will protect them whether they like it or not. That feels safe to them. That feels safe. This is anything but safe. Trump hates women. And his efforts, man, Trump's efforts to hoover women back in it won him the election. Black women showed up and voted for Kamala Harris. Black men, for the most part, showed up and voted for Kamala Harris. White men we knew would vote for President Trump, so that's not a surprise. White women, we failed. He hoovered too many of us back in, and we failed to show up. Let's look now at breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing is a narcissistic tactic. This is what it looks like. When you get disgruntled with a narcissist and you are like at the end of your rope and you're like, I am ready to leave. Like, I cannot do this anymore. A narcissist will sense this. And they know what you need from them. They have always known what you need from them. They just don't want to give it to you. But when you are really at the end of your rope and you're about to leave, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it seems as though they finally get it. They finally get you. You want me to go to that marriage counselor? Absolutely. Let's go to that marriage counselor. You want me to help out with the kids more? Help out with the kids more? I hear you. I see you. I will help out with the kids more for about 5 seconds until you get off their back. And then they go right back to the doing a whole lot of nothing that they were doing before. Okay, just saying. We'll just calm down. But what breadcrumbing really is, they did not see the light. They are really not going to change. What it is they will throw you just enough breadcrumbs to make you think that they've changed and draw you back in. Here's the effect that it has on you, though. Breadcrumbing, the reason they call it breadcrumbs and not feeding you a meal is because it feeds you enough to keep you from dying or leaving them, but it is not enough to actually feed and nourish you or the relationship. Right? Like, it's just enough to hook you back in, but it's not actually enough to be in a healthy relationship with them. So President Trump, this is how I've seen the breadcrumbing with him. President Trump back in 2020 was the first person to say, I think we should get rid of TikTok. TikTok is a threat to China. It's a threat. It's a Chinese threat to America. And so he went about the process of trying to ban TikTok. He was unsuccessful. He did not get reelected. TikTok went on its merry way and did what TikTok does for the next several years until the seeds that he had planted about this Chinese interference or this data breach or whatever it was they were afraid started to bubble up in the rest of Congress. And they passed a law, which Joe Biden signed, banning TikTok. Well, in the meantime, as President Trump is running a campaign, he starts to see that TikTok actually is incredibly helpful for him, that he's winning the youth vote with TikTok. And so he is going to throw TikTok as a breadcrumb. And I heard a lot of people on the right challenging the people on the left. If President Trump brings TikTok back, will you finally admit that he can do something right? Absolutely, clearly classic breadcrumbing, right? He's going to throw just enough to the left because all of us wanted TikTok back. He's going to throw just enough to the left to hook us in, but not enough to actually feed us. So let's take a look at what that TikTok flip-flop looked like.
We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok. And as of today, TikTok is back. We won the youth vote by 36 points. So I like
TikTok's not so bad now.
I like it.
We need to save TikTok. Of course we do. Breadcrumbs. Just enough breadcrumbs to try to draw some of the people on the left onto his side. just prior to an election. Huh. Funny. Now I have a bonus trait of narcissism, and this is not so much a tactic as it is an explanation, and we're talking about a trauma bond. Now, people have talked about trauma bond, and sometimes there's this misunderstanding that a trauma bond is that two people bond over a common trauma. That's not it. So what a trauma bond looks like is that this person is the only person that's on my side. Like, this is my savior, my soulmate. This is my person. No one else in the world gets me. Everyone else in the world is my enemy, but this person gets me. This is my savior. Here's the problem. What a trauma bond truly is, it is not that you're bonded over a common trauma. A trauma bond is formed when the person that hurts you is the same person that rescues you from that hurt. So that person hurts you and then rescues you from that hurt. So they are both the one that causes pain and the one that saves you from the pain, and that causes you to be bonded not by love, but by trauma. It creates a trauma inside of you that bonds you to that person. A trauma bond can be incredibly difficult to leave. And I will show here. You can find this, Google it. You will find that all of the pages say the exact same thing. And this is for domestic violence facts and stats. And it says here that it takes an average of 7 attempts for a survivor of abuse to leave their abuser and to stay separated for good. This is trauma bond. This is what a trauma bond does. It makes you, when you leave, you start to believe that the person that you just left, you remember the times that they saved you. Right? You start to forget the times that they hurt you and remember the times that they saved you from that hurt, and you want that back. It is incredibly difficult to leave, which is part of why, although I will say I am not ready to make nice with the people who voted for him, I do get it. I do understand that MAGAs have been very badly abused by a malignant narcissist. And sometimes we call it cult-like behavior. I think it's trauma bonding. I think part of the reason that they can literally say, I didn't think that Trump would make me lose my job. I didn't think it would come to hurt me, but I still support him. Like, are you kidding me? Like, for the rest of us who are living in the rational world, like, how can you still support the person whose the policies of the person whose policies have made you lose your job? But it's because they still believe that even though this is the person that hurt them, this will ultimately be the person that saves them. So I get it. I don't want y'all in my life. But I understand it, and I hope to God you try to get out, even if it takes you 8 times to do it. So let's take a look at some of the ways that Trump has trauma bonded his people. And this is taking a look at the tariffs. Now, the tariffs have been, for me, an interesting exercise in this formation of a trauma bond, because Trump is proposing tariffs, which we know are going to hurt, but then he backs off on the tariffs because he got Canada and Mexico to give him things that we were already getting, but he saved us nonetheless. But still, we're going to put more tariffs on those same people because why the fuck not? But maybe we'll hold those tariffs back just a little bit. And then, we'll put the tariffs on Canada and Mexico and China. But maybe just not all of the tariffs for the automobile industry, because that automobile industry would really be hurt by this. This is trauma bonding. He's hurting and then saving, and then hurting and then saving. But we have to remember he is the one that hurt us.
I want to start with Donald Trump's tariffs, what he said in his joint address last night, just a little more than 24 hours ago.
Tariffs, it's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited.
And another.
Is this trade policy or gaslighting?
A little bit of both. I think, and the whiplash that the markets and our farmers and everyone from day one is astounding, and it makes it very hard for people to plan, and it makes everyone nervous on top of all of the chaos that we have seen since January 20th.
So, they termed it whiplash, which is kind of what trauma bonding can feel like. Like, you hurt me, you save me, you hurt me, you save me, you hurt me, you save me. And every time that happens, you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the bond, and it gets that much harder to get out. The more that we learn about these narcissistic traits and tactics, the more that we can stop getting into the weeds about the things that really don't matter. Who gives a fuck if Zelensky wore a suit? Who gives a shit if Elon Musk wore a suit? That's not what it was about. It was about power and humiliation and isolation. So if we can get ourselves reattuned to the narcissistic tactics, then we can separate ourselves from the chaos. We can separate ourselves from that constant state of fight or flight that we get in, and we can start to think critically, and we can start to do some problem solving. The chaos is the point. The cruelty is the point. The suffering and the pain, that's the point. If we take a step back and we use our thinking, if we use critical thinking and problem solving instead of emotional reaction, then we can maybe start to make a change. We can, and it's going to be better for our mental health. Let's be real. If we aren't constantly in a state of chaos, it will be better for our mental health. So I like to label them. And I will continue to do some series on labeling the things that Donald Trump is doing in terms of a narcissistic abuser. And it will help us to take that step back and to take a breather that we need so desperately. I'm Snarky Positivity, which means I always end on a positive note. And my positive note is this. Knowledge is power. And if you're still with me, you just gained a whole lot of incredibly powerful knowledge. I want to take a look at the other piece of good news, which is that there is a resistance. There are people who have figured this out, what Trump is doing, and have decided to play not necessarily by his rules, but they've started to understand that Trump is playing a different game. A narcissist is always playing a different game than the rest of us who are healthy. And the Democrats, as they're starting to figure this out, are starting to realize that they can't play nice anymore. And I don't think that, I'm not suggesting that we become ugly, but I think that there is a resistance that's bubbling up, and I'm very happy to see it. So I want to take a look at a very recent act of resistance that I incredibly respect. And I hope that we see more of this in the near future.
Small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat.
And what he's shouting there is that Trump had just said he has this mandate. He's got a mandate from the electorate, which basically is like code for everybody wants this. And what Representative Green was shouting is you do not have a mandate to cut Medicaid, because his budget cuts include cutting Medicaid.
Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
You have no mandate.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House.
Okay. Okay. Really? Really? Okay. Anyway, it's incredibly positive news that there is this resistance bubbling up. My act of resistance is to speak out as much as I can and educate you if you're willing to learn on things like this. Nobody can do all the things, but everybody can do some of the things. So this is one of my some of the things that I'm doing, and I want to encourage you to find the thing or the couple things that really give you a passion to fight back against the malignant narcissism that is currently destroying the fabric of our society, that's destroying the mechanism of government. I mean, just watching it crumble as we sit here and talk. We will rebuild. But first, we got to stop it. So, do your little acts of resistance or your big ones. I don't know, whatever fits for you. And stay positive. We're in this together, and we will get through this together. Right? Remember, one of the narcissists' most effective tactics is isolation. And as long as we start to feel isolated, not only from each other, but also from the other countries who are like, they are with us. Other countries are explicitly saying, we are with you. We feel so horrible that the American people are going through this right now. Try to remember that. Get on World Talk if you can. It's like on the TikTok, you can go and see what the rest of the world is saying. Go onto the World Talk and find out how much support we really truly have. Because if we're isolated, we'll be defeated. But together, we can overcome this. I'm Snarky Positivity. Thank you for staying with me. If you like the content, please subscribe. I'm working to build up my subscriber base. Okay, bye.